If you're looking at purchasing a ring saw but you don't know which one to buy, well, in this video I'm going to go through the differences between the Taurus ring saw and the Griffin ring saw, and then you'll be able to make a decision on which one is going to best suit your needs. Now, just for full disclosure, I have already filmed 2 videos using the Griffin ring saw, and the company that loaned it to me, Access Glass, has decided to actually give me that ring saw. But in no way does it influence any of my decisions when it comes to this video, and nor have they had any input into this video as well. So anyway, let's get into the video. When someone's looking at purchasing a ring saw, 2 of the most popular questions that seem to be asked is it worth me buying a ring saw? And what is the best brand of ring saw to buy? Well, now when it comes down to whether you should buy a ring saw or not is really dependent on your own personal needs and what materials you're going to be cutting out. For instance, if you're going to be cutting out a lot of intricate shapes, or you want to cut out items that don't have cut lines into them, for instance, you're cutting out the letter B and you don't want to have a lot of cut lines in it to form those letters, doing it the traditional way, then a ring saw can come in quite handy. Now, as far as the second question goes on which is going to be the best ring saw to buy, well, I hope this video is going to answer some of the questions and you're able to choose which is going to be the best one to suit your needs. Now, I'm just going to put up on screen now 6 beautiful mosaics where these wonderful artists have created them with the help of their ring saw. And then we'll come back and we'll have a look at the differences between the Taurus ring saw and the Griffin ring saw. Now, before I get into the video, I just want to point out that the measurements that I give you in this video are all approximate. And depending on which country you live in, you might find there could be variances or differences between these models here compared to the models that are available in your country. It would probably pay to talk to your local retailer or distributor before purchasing one. But this video should at least give you a good general overview of both products. Now, when it comes to weighing the ring saws, I have weighed them without packaging and without water in them. And the Taurus ring saw comes in at 5.1 kilograms, while the Griffin ring saw comes in at 5.6 kilograms. Now, when it comes to a working light, the Taurus ring saw does have a working light, so you can cut by, and that turns on when you turn the power on to activate the actual ring saw, and the working light stays on until you turn it off. Now, the Griffin ring saw does not have a working light. Now, when it came to having a water gutter around the perimeter of the ring saw, the Griffin ring saw does have that, which means that when you're working and the water is maybe going over the edge of the work surface area, the gutter helps eliminate that water from going onto your bench because it just puts it back into the reservoir of the Griffin ring saw. I found that Taurus didn't have that gutter, and so therefore at times the water can come over that edge and onto your table. When it came to cleaning out the water reservoirs, both ring saws were very easy to clean out. Now, when it came to the water level mark, the Griffin ring saw does have a mark that you fill the water level up to, and the Taurus ring saw, they just tell you where to fill it up to. Now, when it comes to a stabilizing foot, it apparently helps reduce wear and tear on some of the ring saw parts. The Taurus ring saw does have a stabilizing foot, whereas the Griffin ring saw is engineered so it doesn't need a stabilizing foot. Now, how loud are the ring saws? Well, I'm going to do a decibel test. Now, please be aware that this is not in a controlled environment, so there's bound to be some variances in this test. But it should give us a fairly good idea as to how loud they actually are. Now, I've tried to keep the phone in the same position for both ring saws, and it's certainly reasonably close to the actual ring saws. So when we're actually using our ring saws, we're not going to be this close. We're going to be further away, which means that the noise level will reduce as we go further away. But overall, it should give us a pretty good idea. Well, as you saw in the video, the Griffin ring saw had the lower decibels, but both ring saws are equivalent to running a hairdryer. Now, as I said earlier, the test is not in a controlled environment, so there's going to be variances to that. And I had an app on my phone, which is supposed to be a good app, but I had it on my phone with the microphone actually turned away from the actual motors to take in account being further away from the actual ring saws. Now, how powerful are the actual motors? Well, the Taurus ring saw has 1/5 of a horsepower and the Griffin ring saw has 1/3 of the horsepower. Now, which one's the easiest to use? Well, you don't have to worry about that because I found they're both very easy to use. They were both easy to set up and they were both very easy to use. Now, the cord length. The Taurus ring saw has a 1.8 meter cord length while the Griffin has a 1.5 meter cord length. If you're looking at purchasing a ring saw, it is an investment. And of course, the price is going to be dependent on where you live in the world. I did find overall that the Taurus ring saw was more expensive than the Griffin. And the same went for the spare parts. But of course, there can be many different reasons why that's the case. But I just thought I would mention it in the video. Now, the blade height clearance on the ring saws. The Taurus ring saw has a clearance of around about 19 millimeters with the actual stabilizing foot on, and the Griffin ring saw has a blade height clearance of 38 millimeters. Now, both these units can be used as a handheld saw. They can be completely separate from the main water reservoir. Now, speaking of the reservoir, when it comes to any exposed parts, when it comes to the Taurus ring saw, pretty well all the parts are exposed in the water reservoir, whereas in the Griffin, they have a protective cover over them which helps protect them from any sludge or any particles that end up in the water reservoir. Now, both these ring saws can cut a variety of different materials. So if you want to know more about that, you can go to each of the manufacturers' websites to see what they can cut. Now, also available is an optional blade, and it's called a separator blade, and allows you to do internal cuts without actually a lead-in cut. So that's also worth checking out as well. And both these ring saws have those blades as an optional extra. Now, as far as what comes with the actual ring saws, the Taurus ring saw comes with the installed blade, the instruction book, and also a DVD on how to look after your ring saw. The Griffin ring saw comes with the instruction manual and also a spare ring saw blade, as well as one that's installed into it, as well as a spare maintenance kit as well. And both of them come with protective face shields. Now, as far as ease of carrying around the ring saw, not that we're going to be carrying around often, but if you want to move it from a bench or a table, I did find that the Taurus ring saw was easy to carry around because it had this quite a large lip underneath it that allowed you to get hold of it quicker, and it was more secure for my fingers, whereas the Griffin, although it was quite easy to carry around, I did find because it didn't have that lip that you can kind of get your fingers in underneath. You just had to be careful that you weren't going to slip with it, that was all. But overall, both were quite easy to carry around, but I just felt that the Taurus ring saw had that bit of an edge for that. Now, which ring saw was the easiest to turn on and off? Well, I did find that the Taurus ring saw, because it has this very large switch in the front here and very easily accessible, I found that was the easiest to turn on and off. The Griffin ring saw, although was quite easy to turn on and off, but the switch is at the side and it's a smaller switch and you just have to do a little bit of feeling around to actually feel that switch. But overall, they were both easy, but I just thought that the Taurus was just easier. Now, as far as a carry handle goes, the Taurus ring saw doesn't really have a carry handle, whereas the Griffin ring saw does have a really good carry handle, which I suppose would make it easier if you're going to use it as a handheld item. Well, I hope this video has helped you in comparing the differences between the Taurus ring saw and the Griffin ring saw. Now, I didn't talk about the speed of the ring saws because, to be honest, if I was to nominate and say, well, this one's the fastest or this one's the fastest, then I'd have to have done that test under very controlled conditions. And that would mean brand new blades in each with identical tessera. And to be honest, as the blade wears down, you would probably get variances in that speed anyway. And plus you have so many different materials. So I've used both, and to be honest, the tester that I've been cutting with the ring saw, I haven't really seen much difference in speed, enough to say, oh, this one is the one to get because it's faster, or this one is the one to get because it's faster. So I didn't consider it sort of important enough to actually go through that. If you've got a ring saw or you're looking at purchasing a ring saw, then drop a comment down in the bottom of the comment section on the YouTube channel, because I like to read other people's opinions on the different on the ring saw that they own. Or if you have a question, you're looking at purchasing a ring saw and you have a question about one, then put a comment down. I'll see if I can answer it, and perhaps one of my Treasury Road viewers will be able to chime in and answer it as well and give their opinion. So anyway, I hope you've taken something away from this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like. If you saw value in it, then please share it far and wide. And if you haven't subscribed, think about subscribing, because then you'll be notified as soon as a new video is released. And I'll see you in the next one. Enjoy.